Hi everyone, it's Helen from Mindgift. I'm here today to talk to you about the instruction manual for the mind again, and we're on session number 5 now, would you believe? So what's today about? And today's about our language. And I think if you've seen some of the things I talk about before, I've talked about bad language. And it's not only the things we say out loud, it's actually the things that we think that are still words, if you like, they're still language. And as we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and I don't know if we ever counted that, by the way, but apparently that's true, and 95% of what you think is the same thought as yesterday and the day before and the day before. Oh dear. It might be good to get a bit of an understanding of what we say commonly and often to ourselves and what we think to ourselves, and get a bit of an awareness about that and whether that's actually bad language or not. So that's what we're about today. First of all, just to introduce myself a little bit more, I'm Helen from Mindgift, and we're a husband and wife team. My husband Paul, he's also a personal trainer. We're both NLP coaches and I'm a master practitioner, and we help people get fit in their mind and their body. So if you want to know anything more about us, just go to our website mindgift.co.uk or go onto Facebook and you'll find our contact details there. So first of all, we're going to start with a story, because you know I like a story, and today's story is about a couple of monks, and they're from a particular order of monks that aren't supposed to have anything to do with women. And this one day they've been out on a bit of a trek, and it's absolutely pouring with rain, absolutely sodden they are. You know, they have those big brown gowns and it's like literally dripping off their the hood's up and it's dripping down the nose of the rain, and they're trudging along. And as they're coming up to a bit of a clearing, they know that there's going to be a little bit of a water crossing, and they're just wondering whether or not they're going to be able to get across because of the water level. And as they come up to this water crossing, there's a lady standing there, and she is absolutely desperate. When she sees him, she says, "Oh my God, thank God you're here. Please, can you help me? I really need your help. I've been trying to get across and I can't get across on my own. The rain's terrible. I've got to get over to get a doctor. My brother's sick." And the young monk, he looks at the water level and he sort of looks at the lady, and then he looks at the water level, and then he just ignores the lady. He decides he can get across, and he just gets himself across, trudges through, and he's on the other side. The older monk, however, he looks at the lady, he looks at the water crossing, and he decides, actually, yes, he can get across. He doesn't say anything, but he goes over to the lady and he picks her up and he puts her over his shoulder and he carries her across as well as himself. He gets to the other side, he pops her down, and he just starts walking away. And as he walks away, the younger monk is saying to him, "Oh my God, I can't believe you've just done that." And the lady is shouting, "Oh, thank you so much, that's so kind of you. Please let me, can I do anything for you to thank you?" And they just start walking away. And this younger monk is going on and on saying, why did you do that? I can't believe you've just done that. You know what the order says. The order says we're not allowed to have anything to do with women. I can't believe you've just done that. We might get caught. What if we get caught? What if she comes looking for us? We're gonna get kicked out. I'm not getting kicked out. It was you that did it. It wasn't me. On and on and on. And the older monk is saying nothing, and he's still going on. A few hours later, he's giving it, talk to me, I can't believe you've just done that. We're going to be in such trouble if she comes looking for us. They're going to find out. I'm going to have to tell them it was you. It wasn't me. I'm not getting into trouble. Why did you do that? You know what the order says." On and on and on. 5 hours later, and he's continuing like this. The older monk is still saying nothing, and they're just getting back near to their base camp. And as they get back to their base camp, and the young monk is still giving it, "I can't believe you've done that. Why have you done that? This is terrible. I don't know what's going to happen." On and on. The old monk stops and he turns and he looks at the young monk. And suddenly the young monk shuts up for a minute. And there's silence as they look at each other. Now I must come back to the end of that story. So, what I said I wanted to talk to you about is how we talk to ourselves, actually, or the language we use in talking to ourselves, or the language that we think. And if you remember a few weeks back, I was telling you about how a program is formed, and I was telling you that when a trigger, like me opening the fridge, and we were talking about my panic attack program, when a trigger happens, it goes through your instantly through your memory bank, through your values, through your beliefs, and it starts deleting and distorting and generalizing information. And if you remember, I told you I'd come back to that, didn't I? So we're going to talk about the language we use when we delete, distort and generalize. What do I mean by that? And let's see if any of you are doing this. So first of all, a generalization. So a generalization is something like always, never, everybody, everyone, those kind of words. Okay, and another great one is people. And we'll come back to people in a minute. So you'll remember, or you might not, so I'll remind you that when I was triggering my fight flight response into my panic attack program, I would be saying something like, I don't want to go to the supermarket because I always have a panic attack in the supermarket. Always underlined, yeah? Hammer, 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 always. And actually, the truth of the matter in this situation was always, I'd been having panic attacks for probably 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, this was an episode in my life that I went through. So I was in my early 30s. So what the hell did always mean? Because actually always included 30 odd years of my life. And for 30 odd years, I had gone to the supermarket and been fine. That's 3 decades. And yet, when I used the word always, what I did was, using that generalisation, was delete the information about those 30 years. And this comes back to the thing we were talking about a couple of weeks ago again when we were talking about our internal sat-nav, and it goes to find information to support what you're telling it. So I would be saying always have a panic attack, and it would find information in the last manner of weeks to support that information. So your reticular activating system, or your internal sat-nav, will go searching for information that supports what you've asked it for. So when I was using the term always have a panic attack, it would find information in the last 6 to 8 weeks when that was happening. And yet for 30 odd years that hadn't been happening, and now my sat-nav was deleting that information. So this is a generalisation and a deletion then together. In terms of another good generalisation that I hear a lot clients using that is a favourite of mine is this people. And I often hear them saying, people will think, people will say, what will people say, this kind of term, and they keep using the word people. And often we don't even know we're using some of these words. So commonly I'll listen to someone talk, and they might listen, to be talking for a good 5 minutes. And then I'll say to them, do you know how many times you've just, there's one word you've just used in that last 5 minutes, and you've used it 26 times. Do you know what the word is? And they'll be like, oh, a bit surprised. No idea that they're regularly using a word. And they won't be able to quote what the word is to me. They won't be able to tell me what the word is. And then when I say to them, oh, the word was people, for example, it might be a different word, but in this one it's people. So the word was people. And they'll be like, oh, gosh, really? What? No idea that that's a term they use a lot. And then I could say to them, so in this particular example, who are these people? Interesting question, isn't it? Who are these people? And if you think about it yourself, you might have a few answers to it. I've heard a few. Some clients go, I've no idea actually. Or some say, oh, now you say it's actually X and Y, and it might be 2 individuals that they consider when they're mentioning people. Or it might be a generalised group of people on Facebook, for example, or on a social media platform. So, but I just want you to ask yourself, when you're using these terms, who is everybody? Who is people? Sometimes clients will say things like, oh, it's something my mum said or my dad said. So we just need to check in on what we mean to ourselves. Because when we start quoting that word and we say everybody, nobody, people, we're using this huge group when actually we're talking about one or two individuals. Yeah, so it gives us that bit of a perspective. Because a common one you'll hear in relationships in a generalisation is things like, you always shout at me, you snap at me, or you never do the washing up. This kind of comment that instantly will make someone want to defend themselves. It'd make you want to defend yourself, wouldn't it? And it's never a good way to frame something. And again, you'll be deleting the times when that person has done the washing up, if you like, or has answered you without snapping at you, which I'm sure has happened. Okay. So that's generalisation and distortion. They often are a bit intertwined, but then, deletion. And then we do have the word distortion, which is something else that we commonly do and fascinates me. And one of my favourite ones, I've got lots, but one of my favourite clients, and if she ever listens, she'll know who I'm talking about. And it's quite a long time ago now, but I still love it. So this distortion was the word she would use when she was thinking about going to the dentist, because she didn't like going to the dentist. You might say she had a fear, you might say she had an anxiety, you might say she had a phobia, because we all have a different, again, word, piece of language that we're happy to label on something. And it's interesting because we often will say things like, well, I wouldn't call it a phobia. But what is a phobia actually when you think about it? Because if you're avoiding doing something that is going to be your detriment at some point, this particular lady would eventually go to the dentist, once her tooth was falling out or there was an abscess. But the pain she'd had to go through to get to that point is extreme, isn't it? Is that a phobia? It doesn't even matter what we want to call it, does it? But she's avoiding going to the dentist and it is to her detriment. So it needed sorting out. And every time I asked her about it, the episode and going to the dentist, and we talk about it, and I said to her, how do you feel about it, what it is about it? One of the things she would say is, and I'll use the expression as well, because these things come up with your body language, she would go, well, it's just horrific, isn't it? It's absolutely horrific. And you can almost see, can't you, as the hands go up, she pulls away, her shoulders go up, and it's horrific. She's turning away her head, associated with the word horrific. And you think of the word horrific, think of something that you think is horrific. Yeah? It's a big deal, isn't it? And that was the term she was using that attributed to a visit to the dentist for a checkup. So I thought to myself, well, gosh, I said, well, to be honest, that's not how I think about it. Do you know, it's something that I do routinely. I said to her, so, but obviously you don't do it routinely, do you? So let's just have a little bit of a think about what you do routinely and you do with ease, okay? Because we want to associate a different piece of language or thinking around this that might be more supportive and helpful. Because coming back to language and coming back to some people's perception of positive thinking and happy clappy thinking, if you like, you might think I might suggest you to go, well, stop calling it horrific and just say that you love going to the dentist or that it's exciting. And you would just think, wouldn't you, well, that is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way whoever in the world, including me, who has no question about going to the dentist, I never think it's exciting. I never think, I can't wait to go, yippee, let me get my appointment. It's just something routine. So when we're thinking about changing the language and we've got a big distortion that's having an impact on how we feel, we do have to get a bit real about it. We do have to be a bit realistic about the words we choose, because it has to feel okay. Because if I start saying to you, make it exciting, make it a really happy event, make it joyful, there is a level of resistance that will come up in your mind because you'll think that is a load of crap, Helen. Is going to stop you from enabling you to do that, isn't it? So we've always got to be in tune with our feelings when we're changing our language to see if it's bringing us any resistance or it feels comfortable to us when we're changing the words. So, I could change my always have a panic attack in the supermarket to, well, actually, I went for 30 years and I was perfectly fine, because I knew that was true because I checked the facts. But this lady can't go, well, I find the dentist really exciting, because that is a step too far, isn't it? So I said to her, let's think about something else that you do that is what I call routine, that you regularly do, that's like self-care, preventative medicine. What might that be? And the thing she came up with, sorry about this gentleman, but the thing she came up with was a smear. Now I thought, wow. I mean, I actually crossed my legs at the time. I went, oh, myself, because it's not my favourite thing. I go, but I'd rather go to the dentist. So anyway, she said, a smear. So I said, oh, okay. So you do that. You don't have any issue doing that. That's absolutely fine. You go there regularly. You wouldn't dream of not going. Absolutely, yeah. I said to her, so how do you think about that? What is it? What's the way you frame that? What words do you use? And she said, well, it's just a bit unpleasant, isn't it? Wow, I said. Say that again. Well, it's just a bit unpleasant, but it's necessary. Oh, how interesting. So it's necessary to care for herself and take care of herself to make sure she doesn't have cancer. And it's just a bit unpleasant. As opposed to, it's necessary to go to get my teeth checked so that I regularly can eat, yeah? And it's a bit unpleasant. Oh, it's horrific. I'm sure you're getting my meaning and the difference here, aren't you? So if you've got anything that you find brings up fear, anxiety, worry, any of those things on the spectrum of a negative emotion, just have a little check and a listen to yourself about the words you say out loud or that you think in here, that you attribute to that particular thing, because there is a likelihood that you're saying it in such a way that it's bringing up quite a strong emotion because it's distorted and blown out of proportion, or you've generalised it in some way and you more than likely have deleted some information, like actually going to the dentist is really necessary and really helpful because actually if I go routinely every 6 months, the likelihood of me ever having to have a tooth out is massively reduced. If I don't go for years and years on end and I keep eating rubbish and I don't clean my teeth properly, blah blah blah, the likelihood of having to have a tooth out is increased risk, isn't it? So really think about the words you use and where they, how they make you feel. But also importantly, when you think about changing the word, make sure it's realistic, okay? That is really important, that it's realistic and you're not saying something to yourself that you frankly do not believe. Because if it's a step too far, do not believe it, then the resistance coming up will just bang it out of the park and you'll be wasting your energy. So bear that in mind. We went from horrific to a bit unpleasant in this dental scenario. Okay. So what we want to do is consider what we're saying to ourselves and whether we're affirming things to ourselves. And I've mentioned affirmations in the past, and I'm just going to quickly remind you that there's many of you out there that will tell me you never do affirmations, yeah? And we all do affirmations. And when we do affirmations, what I mean is we affirm things to ourselves. They might be helpful, they might be unhelpful. What we usually are doing, if we say we're not doing affirmations, is affirming things to ourselves that are not helpful. So I was affirming to myself, I always have a panic attack in the supermarket, when I actually was having them for a period of time, 6 to 8 weeks, and for 30 years I hadn't had one. So I needed to affirm to myself, for 30 years I went to the supermarket, was fine. My client had to say to herself, actually, go for a smear, it's a bit unpleasant. I can go to the dentist, it's a bit unpleasant. Now, I'm not suggesting that was as simple as that. There's quite a bit more to helping someone with that kind of thing. But you get the little nuances within these programs that I've taught you about and the way the program is attached. So, the trigger is I've got a ring to go to the dentist. Then all that information goes around quickly. Generalizations, values, belief, deletes, distortions. We now have a picture. Our physical body is going like this. Our heart is racing. We've started breathing differently. We're clenching our teeth, yeah? And the fact of the matter is then we're never going to make an appointment to go to the dentist because we've scared ourselves, yeah? So all these little aspects link to how we can interrupt the program, and I've mentioned a couple to you throughout the last few weeks, and this one is interrupt the program by choosing a better word and choosing some better language. First, you've got to be aware of the language you're using, and as I've said about many of these things, we're not aware. And so these little sessions are to help you start to notice and become aware, because awareness is the first point of change. So what am I saying to myself? It's an affirmation. How can I change the affirmation? What words can I use that are better but realistic? Yeah? And then when we interrupt the program, we give ourselves a bit of space to start to work out how to change it and get a better result. And we're going to be talking in the next session about what is the result we want. So I'm going to tell you the end of that story, if you remember, about the monks in a minute. But if you are experiencing any of these any difficulties in terms of your lifestyle and quality of life and things that are causing you a problem, and you want more of our advice, or you'd like to work with us one-to-one, then we can do that face-to-face or on video conferencing. And we do actually design training and workshops and all those kind of things. So if you want a bit more of us and you'd like to know a bit more of us, then as I said before, go to our website mindgift.co.uk or go to Facebook and you'll find our contact details, and we can help you on a more one-to-one level of that. And just remember, there doesn't have to be something as you perceive to be wrong. Often people think, well, there's not really anything wrong, or I'm not really suffering or struggling. The best, most successful people in the world, sports people, business people, all have coaches, don't they? So this is about making things right and actually making things better, even if they are right, not there has to be something wrong. So do bear that in mind, and let's go back to those monks. And if you remember, the young monk had been going on and on and on and on for 5 hours. I can't believe you've done this. Why have you done this? The order's going to throw us out. I'm going to have to say it was you. It wasn't me. On and on and on. And the old monk suddenly stops. And he looks at the young monk, and there is a silence. And they're looking at each other. And the old monk says, "Young man, I put that lady down over 5 hours ago. It is you who is still carrying her." So I hope you get my point there, and you can have a think about what you're still carrying, and you can have a think about these deletions, distortions, generalizations and language for the next week, till I come back to you next week and talk to you about what result you want, which is the final part of the program that we've been talking about in this instruction manual for your mind. Meanwhile, we'll also be with you on Saturday morning, while Paul does a live PT session, and I do some of the moderations for you. So take care this week, everybody. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.